Hi, I'm Ed Gooderham from Green & Co Accountants. I just want to give you a review of the budget I've just been watching Rachel Reeves deliver. There are lots of various different tax changes coming up. Some affect immediately, some next year, some several years' time. Unfortunately, she's frozen the income tax thresholds, the inheritance tax thresholds, allowances until 2031. So that's a long way and a long time, and a lot of inflation can happen between now and then. So that's the backdrop of what they call fiscal drag and causing more of us to then come into high rate tax at 50,270 and over into 100,000 where we start losing personal allowance, and 125,000 is where you get into additional rate tax. So that's what we already knew is fixed until 2028, and she's extended it by 3 years until 2031. There's no change to income tax rates on the main headings. There are changes to savings tax rates. So we still have our £5,000 0% savings band, which we utilise for lots of clients after the £12,500 salary before they get the dividends. But for most of you who receive interest on savings accounts and other things, that's going to be a new tax rate in 2027, which will add 2% to the normal rates. So instead of paying 20%, you'll pay 22%, 40% will go to 42%, and 47% will go, 45% will go to 47%. They've also changed it for rental income. So rental income is also going to increase by 2% at all the rates of basic, additional, and higher. They've also increased dividend tax. So dividend tax is currently 8.75% for basic rate taxpayers. That's going up by 2% to 10.75%. And for the additional, and the higher rate, is going from 33.75 to 35.75. They haven't changed the additional high rate tax, but this will have a major effect if you are a high rate taxpayer between £50,000 and £100,000, or even up to £125,000. That extra 2% might make it more advantageous to look at having salary instead of dividends. And we'll be running some numbers in the next couple of days for that. The other changes that the government have announced today, one of the ones that affects from today is many clients might sell their business to their staff under an employee ownership trust, which historically has had a 100% capital gains exemption. This has now been cut to 50%, and is the only tax announcement today that affects from today. So unfortunately, if any of you are looking at doing that before April, you'll now be paying 50% of the tax, whereas you were previously 100% exempt. So that was one we weren't expecting, but just to highlight. There's also other changes that affect people with income tax. If some clients invest in VCTs and they're looking at reducing the tax allowance on those for income tax from 30% to 20%, and this is going to come into force from April next year. There are also scope for widening the EMI reliefs. Again, not a huge amount of detail released yet, but these will come into play over the coming years. Stocks and shares, ISAs, would affect several clients as they invest for their pension for the future or put money aside into investments. The stocks and shares ISAs are fine. They're keeping those at 20,000. The cash ISAs, they're reducing by 8,000 to 12,000 unless you're over 65. So a lot of my clients who are looking at inheritance tax and they've got large ISA investments, the historic figures are fine. You'll still get tax relief for your interest. It's for your future investments into the ISAs that will be limited if it's only a cash ISA to £12,000. Corporation tax remain unchanged, which is good news. There's some changes for apprenticeship training costs for under 25s. Again, more details needed about what exactly they're saying on those. The one good bit of good news on the inheritance tax for APR, BPR is that this £1 million allowance that we have can now be passed from husband to wife, which is one of the issues that we've had with the current legislation. Obviously, this doesn't come into effect yet, but it's good that they've realised the error. Sadly, they didn't increase the limits, which would have been more helpful, from £1 million upwards, but at least now they can be passed from husband to wife so that it doesn't have to be used for each person. And like I said earlier, the nil rate band, residential nil rate band, and the £1 million allowance have all been set or frozen until 2031. There was one announcement about salary sacrifice cap for people putting money into pensions. Now, salary sacrifice is a very useful tool for lots of people, especially employed people who want to get under the 100k threshold or the 50k threshold. They forego salary and have the company put the money into pension instead. Unfortunately, HMRC or the government have changed their mind about this relief. It's not coming in until 2029, so you've got a few years to carry on making good pension contributions via salary sacrifice. But from April 2029, national insurance will be charged both employees and employers on any figures over £2,000. Again, more detail will come out in the coming years, but it's a good idea to make use of the salary sacrifice arrangements for the next couple of years until we get to that point. Business rates, there was lots of talk about changes in business rates, especially for those on the high street. Again, more details coming out in the coming weeks, so we'll be able to give you more details about that in the future. But if you have got a shop, a business trading on the high street, it's well worth keeping an eye on this because it might be a good saving for you coming up. Electric vehicle excise duty, EVED, 3p per mile for electric vehicles, 5p a mile for hybrids, coming in April 2028. Nothing we can do about that, just wait and see. They're saying it's going to cost the average motorist £240. I do about 16,000 miles a year. It would cost me £480 to double what they're saying. And I've got clients who do well excess of 30,000 miles. So it's just another cost coming in a couple of years' time for us to be aware of and remember. Anybody who did an EBT loan scheme many years ago, the government announced that there is going to be a final way of sorting these things out. I've had clients who've done them. I've had clients who've come to me after they've been caught by them and trying to get out of them. It's good news the government's finally coming up with something to get rid of it. I haven't seen any of the details yet because they haven't released it, but it'll be well worth those of you who have still got these loan agreements going on in the background to have a look at this and see how we can settle these things once and for all. By the looks of the figures, the government aren't anticipating getting all the money, so there could be options to actually settle early with a lower fee, which would be good. As announced last night, the national minimum wage is increasing for those aged 18 to 20 to £10.85 in April. Those over 21, it's increasing from £12.21 to £12.71 from April 26. So it's over a 4% increase for over 21s. Again, this is just increasing the cost of employing people, especially at that level. So it's just something else to bear in mind with pay rises next year and increasing your charges to your clients and customers to make sure you're not losing out on margin for yourself. There's a few things announced about private hire vehicles, about the VAT that some people have been getting away with. If that affects you, by all means give us a call and we can discuss it. And there's lots of changes to gambling duty for those that are online, which again, many of these businesses are based overseas. So that's not a bad thing either, to increase the revenues from those and reduce them. There was a very strange comment at the end of the budget document, which is about 150 pages, about incorporation relief. The government's introducing a requirement for taxpayers to actively claim incorporation relief from April 26. I don't quite know what the issue has been with that with the government, but just to highlight that if you are incorporating your business, you will, after April, have to actively claim it. So that was just a quick run through of all the changes that I've managed to pick up from what she said and what the Red Book says. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, please get in touch.